Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. Memoir of my banking journey by Mr. V.H. Ramakrishnan, retired General Manager of Bank of India. Episode number 18. The chapter Delhi Chalo, my experiences as a General Manager is continuing. The link of earlier episodes is available in description. Liaison with Banking Division continued. Once a director level officer was appointed as a director of our bank, my PRO Kapoor came and told me that he was a computer savvy person. He was a director in another bank and was shifted to Bank of India. I was to call on him to formally welcome him to our bank. Kapoor briefed me as to what he was going to demand. He had made some inquiries with the other bank, so I was mentally prepared as to how to answer him. He received me nicely and said he had two requests. One, he wanted a desktop computer, latest, to store all the work related to our bank. I assured him that I would provide one. His next demand was tough. He wanted a car to pick him up every day from his house to the banking division and back. I told him that it would not be possible for me to provide for a car on daily basis. However, in case of any emergency, I would send a car. I told him that we do not have any spare car. He did not insist, but he was not happy. I came back to the office and immediately phoned the chairman and briefed him about my meeting. Mr. Dahotre said he would take care. If the director complains, but the director did not raise the issue with the chairman. About 6 months later, he was shifted from our bank and was appointed as the director of a smaller bank. A year later, I saw a news item in the paper. The gentleman had raised a similar demand with that bank also, and they had obliged. The union reported the matter to the banking division, and the officer had to face an investigation. I thanked God for saving me from such an embarrassing situation. One day Bala told me that there was a call from a PA to joint secretary of a department not banking or finance, asking for the names and loan amounts granted to borrowers belonging to a particular type of industry. That was a bit strange. I told Bala to inform the PA that we would not be able to furnish such information. Within 5 minutes, the joint secretary was on the line. He asked me what my problem was. When other banks had given the information, his tone was very harsh. I told him that I could not comment on that on the other banks. Since his department had no connections with my bank, I would not have able to give the details as I would be violating the confidentiality of the customer. I told him that he should come through banking division. He got wind. He asked the usual question, do you know to whom you are talking to? I told him I was aware that he was a joint secretary and he should also know that he was talking to a general manager of Bank of India. He slammed the phone down. Next day, HPA phoned Kapoor and told him that the information was needed by the joint secretary's son who was doing a summer project. I laughed and told Kapoor that let the joint secretary's son come to the bank and we would help him without breaking the confidentiality code. Apart from such exceptions, there were many officers who were very nice to me. Mr. Dev Mukherjee, who was earlier High Commissioner in Nigeria, was in Delhi as Additional Secretary in the External Affairs Department. I called on him. He had specially ordered India Coffee House coffee for me. Mr. M. Damodaran, who later became the chairman of UTI and IDBI, was a joint secretary in the banking division. Very kind and friendly. After my retirement, he himself inquired about me with Mr. M. Venugopalan, who was CMD of Bank of India, and appointed me as a nominee director of UTI in three companies. I will write about my experiences with them later. Some unforgettable officers. When you write about your experiences, it is very difficult to write about everyone. I had mentioned a few names. Still, many who are reading this may feel that I had not mentioned anything about them. I seek their pardon. Still, let me write a few lines on some who immediately come to my mind. Lakshman Murthy was a dedicated officer who was assigned the job of mobilizing large deposits, short term as well as regular deposits from PSUs. He would always peep in and say he had collected cro- some crores during the day. He was always on the move. He would jot down the particulars in a 200-page notebook and would read the names from there. A very cheerful person, always smiling. No one would have been seen him angry or dejected. Later on, he quit the bank and is practicing law in Bangalore. N. A. Lakshmanan was a calm and quiet person, very thorough in his work, totally dependable, basically a Delhiite. I could always rely upon him to get any information about South Indian community. Mr. Dal was another balanced person, ever smiling. If I remember correct, he was the manager of Bank Street branch. I can never forget one Mr. Joshi, a Gujarati gentleman who was the manager of Hamdard Dawakhana branch. Whenever it was the birthday of a staff member, he would gift him or her with a lottery ticket. Another very efficient officer was also a Joshi, a qualified cost accountant who was the manager of Ashok Bihar branch. Later on, he became the AGM of Bullion Exchange branch. I now remember that I had not mentioned about one officer who later became a chairman of a bank. It was S.C. Gupta, who took initiative to renovate Corner Circus branch. P.P. Jain was a second officer in Lajpat Nagar branch. Though I had met him a few times, I had to admit I did not realize his potential. The reason was his boss never spoke about him. He retired as a GM. M.D. Sharma came from Bihar and was posted as chief manager of Chandni Chowk branch. Totally devoted, very hard working person, even though he had to go through some difficult times. He reached the position of general manager. He is another officer who is still in touch with me. He is happily settled and settles between India and foreign countries. Isapali Road branch was in a good business locality. S. Krishnan, whom we used to call as Comrade Krishnan, was the manager there. He had a tough time in computerizing the branch, as the staff were highly skeptical. He was a person who would pat everyone and get things done. He had faced one unpleasant incident. All the staff members together performed a Satyanarayan Puja and also had a Havan. There was one staff member who always used to be a troublemaker. After the puja was over, he kicked the Havan with his shoes. Krishnan was quite upset. He came to me the next day and narrated the incident. I pacified him, saying that nothing would happen to him or branch as he had not done anything wrong. As far as the hearing staff was concerned, I said, let the God take care of him. Krishnan was succeeded by the Ekam, Ekam, Ekamabaram. He was a stenographer in our agriculture department in Chennai in 70s. My department, community banking department, and AFD were in the same hall, and I knew Ekamabaram very well. Very studious, he came up very well in the bank. He used to lead from the front. I met Ekamabaram very recently at a wedding. He is happily settled. He has brilliant children. I would also like to mention about R.S. Arora, who headed the C&IC department. He was a balanced person and showed remarkable maturity on dealing with credit proposals. Gogia, I did not work with him closely. He was in a big branch. I came to know that he was one of the best credit officers of the bank. He was remembered by the customers of Industrial Finance Branch even after many years since he left. Sushil Kumar was a very knowledgeable forex officer at Nehru Place, hard-working officer. It was not a surprise for me when he was posted as manager of London branch. He later retired as general manager. C.H. Kavina was the AGM of Connaught Circus branch. He had a frightening mustache, but was very soft-spoken and good-hearted. Unfortunately, he died prematurely while in service. Richard Dua, he was a deputy chief manager in IFB, brilliant and hardworking. He would never fight with his boss. If there is one department in the bank, whether it is head office or zones, where the officers are totally dedicated to their work, it is the official language cell. Not the zone was no exemption. I had Mr. Rajendra Prasad, a very fine officer, as the head of the cell. I had mentioned earlier that I had to speak necessarily in Hindi when I had to address the officers in the branches in Rajasthan. I used to call Rajendra Prasad and would give him my points, and he would, knowing my weakness, prepare a nice speech in Hindi. What I used to appreciate in him was the enthusiasm in taking up any assignment given to him. Whenever he had any spare time, he would try to help other departments like administration. I think he retired as the vice principal of our Noida Training College. Still peace. That is bureaucracy. People holding particular ranks were provided with a car in government with the stipulations that it should be used only for official purposes. Strictly speaking, the car should not be used for going home or coming to office. The bureaucrats found a way out. Invariably, they would always have to carry files home. So the car was used to take the files home for disposal, which was an official purpose. The officer just accompanied the files. Beware, next installment is about the ladies of Northern Zone. Ladies of Northern Zone. My knowledge about lady stuff is limited to the officer cadre. Still, I remember two from the clerical cadre. I have already written about Samula, who was and is part of the secretariat. I also remember ever smiling Anjana, who was a very good typist and was with Kapoor in the public relations department. I learned that she is now secretary to general manager in head office. I wish her all the best. Who can forget dashing and articulate Miss Parvinder Kaur, a direct recruit officer. She was in zonal office and later moved to the secretariat after I left Delhi. I was happy to learn that she has now become an assistant general manager and is in Ahmedabad. My best wishes to her. Amongst the lady officers, I have to write about Mrs. Mehendro. I would say she was a board manager. During my time, when her term ended at one branch, we found that there was no branch available for her as she had covered all the branches where she could be posted. So we brought her to zonal office to head credit card department. She was like a fish out of water. It took quite some time for her to settle down. During her tenure, I called on Kiran Bedi along with her to congratulate the latter on winning the Magsaysay award. Bedi was in charge of Tihar jail at that time. When we reached Tihar jail, we were ushered in very fast, not to the cells. Mrs. Mahendra was on first name basis with Bedi. Bedi asked me whether I had any problem in reaching her cabin. I told her that it was faster than reaching the managing director's cabin in the corporate office. She said she had purposely made it simple so that people should not think it was very difficult to meet a high police official. A few days after my reporting at Delhi, Venugopalan, DGDM, told me that we are getting one very good officer at the zonal office. He mentioned about Parveen Ahuja, who was finishing her rural or semi-urban posting on the outskirts of Delhi. His assessment was quite correct. Parveen was a very good officer and had ambition to go up the ladder. She was in charge of planning department after the departure of Alok Misra and did a very good job. She retired as a deputy general manager. I am sure she would have definitely become a general manager and with a bit of luck even beyond that, but for her problem of mobility. Still, she managed to do a stint at Pune after one of her promotions. She has three brilliant children. I remember her daughter coming out with flying colors from IIM Ahmedabad. She is another officer who is still in touch with me. I wish her and family all the best. When it was rare for lady officers getting foreign postings, Santha Nagarajan, who was deputy chief manager at IFB, was selected for Hong Kong. For a major part of her stay in Hong Kong, she stayed alone with her small child. I expected her to reach a top position in the bank. However, back in India, I think mobility problem hit her. There were many lady officers who were the wives of IAS and IFS officers. Quite a few of them were posted at Khan Market branch. One great quality of all these officers was that they never showed off their status and worked sincerely. I particularly remember two of them. One was Jayasri Ramesh. She had earlier worked in Hyderabad. Her husband Ramesh Narayanasamy was a senior IAS officer. In fact, I met Ramesh first at a wedding of one of my relatives in Delhi. While talking to him, I told him that I was with Bank of India. Then he said his wife was also working at Connaught Circus branch and introduced her to me. Jayasri was a very smart and articulate person. She took voluntary retirement and then joined Chinese language classes. A person who cannot remain idle even for a moment. I would also record here that she voluntarily came forward to help me in a particular matter. I would never forget that. When I visited Andamans for holidays, I met Ramesh, who was the Chief Secretary of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. He was kind enough to invite me for a dinner. Another quiet officer was Mrs. Kantha, daughter of former Finance Minister Jaswant Sinha. She quit the job later to join her husband, who was posted abroad. When I visited Hong Kong in the year 2000, along with the then chairman, Mr. K.V. Krishnamurti, Mr. Kantha was the High Commissioner of India there. We called on him and later met both Mrs. and Mr. Kantha at a dinner hosted by Mr. Arjun Melwani, founder director of Commonwealth Finance Company. She was the same old quiet person, recognized me and spoke to me with warmth. Pinnacle of a glory. I had mentioned earlier that I would reveal in the end how far my experiments had succeeded in improving the performance of the zone. By encouraging the managers to fix their own targets and not shifting them often, we could reach the position of third best zone in March 1994, as per the rankings announced at the annual General Managers Conference. That was from a position of 8th or 9th in 1992. This was heartwarming. After returning from Mumbai at the Managers Conference, I made an emotional appeal to all the managers to put in an extra effort during that year so that we could hope to become the best zone. I told them it was a tough challenge. Invariably, Mumbai South Zone, because of its huge size and business potential, used to win the trophy. The managers had rarely seen me so emotional. They took my appeal to their heart. I knew it because of the inner interactions after the meeting. Our performance in 1994-95 were much better than the previous year. Still, I was not very hopeful since every zone would have done better. When the head office convened the conference, I was quite confident that our zone would maintain at least the third position. It is said that you have to keep running to be at the same place. Finally, the moment of announcing the winners came. Third position went to another zone. I was crestfallen. Then the second position went to Mumbai South Zone. I woke up. Was my dream going to come true? Then amidst thunderous clapping, Northern Zone was declared as the winner of the Chairman's Rolling Cup for the best zone for 1994-95. That was the best moment of my career in the bank. Full credit to the tireless efforts of all the staff members of the zone. The managers delivered the results expected of them with the help of all their staff members, all the zonal office. Departments gave them timely support, backed them in their endeavors. My contributions was limited to enabling them to realize their own potential. I was like a catalyst. I am grateful for the entire staff of North Zone for the support given to me. Help is when two IAS officers meet for the first time, the first exchange of information is about which batch they belong to. They would not talk further unless seniority is determined. I also had similar experiences in Bank of India. Before the implementations of Pillai Committee recommendations, there were five grades in the bank: D, C, B, A, and A special. Above that was the top executive grades. D grade had a long span. Since I was a chartered accountant, I was fixed a little below the middle of D grade. In 1975, so we conducted a one-week workshop on community banking at Hyderabad. I was heading the department in South Zone. For some reason, I wanted to visit Basirbagh branch. One Mr. Beg was the manager. He had done a wonderful job in deposit mobilization. It was reported that he was related to the Nizam family. My colleagues in Hyderabad told me that the first question Beg would ask would be about the grade. Believe it or not, that was what happened. The moment I took my seat, he asked me, "What grade are you now?" I told him that I had entered C grade. Then he was all smiles because he was also on the same grade. I went on a holiday to Chandigarh in the late 70s. I had some rupee travelers take. I wanted to encash them. In the hotel I was staying, the manager of the hotel told me that they would accept any bank's traveler's check except that of Bank of India. My pride was hurt. I also wanted to inform the local manager about it. I went to the branch. I entered the cabin and introduced myself. The manager did not show much interest in talking to me, though he got the job done. Then he casually asked me about my grade. I told him I was in C grade. He immediately got up from his seat and said that he never realized that I was so senior. He then asked me whether I would like to have coffee or tea. He said he was still in D grade. I got a royal treatment thereafter. Some glimpses of a new customers. You might have observed that I have not written much about the customers. That is because I did not want to cross the Lakshman Rekha. But still I thought I would briefly mention about a few remarkable characters. There are two women entrepreneurs I came across. In both cases, they had a disturbed family life. They overcame the personal problems and started something on a small scale and grew big. One of them was politically well connected during Rajiv Gandhi's time, but she would never drop any names. She would fight for her requirements on the merits of her case. The other lady became a successful exporter. She would plead her case effectively. Her business was growing very well, but none of her children were interested in her business. Their passions were on different subjects. They were coming up very well in their fields. I once asked her as to what would happen to her business in future when she becomes old. She smiled and told me that she would sell off the business and buy a farm and grow roses. I believe that is what she is doing now. Normally, chairman or managing director of the big corporates would call on only the chairman of the bank. There was an exception. Mr. Lohia, the promoter, chairman of the Indo-Rama Synthetics, used to call on the local heads of banks in March every year. He would brief them about his plans for the year ahead. On the second day after my taking charge, one of the large borrowers of a branch, an old Sardarji, phoned me. He was running a dairy business successfully. He wanted to meet me at home. The next day morning around 8:30, I told him that I do not meet customers at home and that he could come to the office. He said his business does not allow him to come after 10 in the morning. Hence he would like to come home. Then I told him that I would reach office as early as 9 a.m. for his sake. He was unhappy but finally agreed. I always feel that one should discuss official matters only in the office. There is what is called situational advantage. The office chair makes all the differences. Anyway, the Sardarji only wanted to tell his life story, which was an interesting story of rag to riches. Even though I was not good in personally doing going out for mobilization of deposits, I had told all managers that I would be glad to accompany them to meet a depositor or potential depositor. One of my managers told me that there was one Swamiji who was keeping substantial deposits with him and that a visit by the general manager would please the Swamiji and further deposits should flow. He suggested we should go around 6:30 p.m. I was imagining a Swamiji wearing saffron color robe with a flowing bird in a peaceful cottage. But the manager took me to a modern flat. The servant told us that the Swamiji had gone out and would be back in 5 minutes. We were seated in the drawing room on a comfortable sofa. A few minutes later, a person walked in wearing white shorts and a t-shirt with a tennis racket in hand. I looked at him casually. Then the manager nudged me and said that he was the Swamiji. The Swamiji apologized for the delay and said he used to play tennis daily. He had written a few books and had many foreign followers. It was an interesting meeting. I realized that he was called Swamiji out of respect for his religious work and that he was not a sannyasi. We had a borrower from Rajasthan who started as a small railway conductor and grew big. At the zonal level, we are very happy with the company, though it used to approach us frequently for additional limits based on the contracts booked. However, when one proposal went to the head office, they raised a few queries. It went to a general manager who had earlier worked as a general manager of Northern Zone. Knowing the promoter, he made an observation. Mr. X was getting old and did not have a proper setup to handle the business and was not involving his soul. He conveyed the feelings diplomatically to the borrower. Next day, he landed in my office with all his 10 top executives and so on. I had to take them to the conference room. He introduced each and every one, all well qualified technical experts. He challenged me. You can ask my son or any one of these people about my business. I told him there was no need for that. I was fully convinced about his company and pacified him. But I could see that he was hard by head of his views. I got what he wanted. However, after I left, the account was snatched by a big private bank and the company has grown 10 times bigger. This is a sample of many cases where people grow with our bank for many years and then we lose them, mainly because of our insensitive approach. Once an industrialist called on the then chairman, Mr. Dhaotre, during his visit to Delhi. I was also present during the discussions. He wanted finance for his project. Mr. Dhaotre told me in his presence to study the proposition and send the proposal to head office. However, when we studied the project report, we found it not viable. The industrialist then came to see me and asked me about his proposal. I told him that we would not be able to process it as we are not convinced about the viability. Then he asked me in a harsh tone, as if he was my boss, what did the chairman tell you? I told him that it was between me and my chairman and that I was not bound to answer him. The next question shocked me. He told me he would like to come to my house the next evening. Even though I got willed, I controlled myself and told him that there was no need for him to come to my house to discuss official matters. He left angrily. Within a minute of his leaving, I called Mr. Dhaotre and briefed him about the matter. I informed him that he would get a complaint from this industrialist. Mr. Dhaotre told me not to worry and that he would take care of the matter. The purpose of narrating this incident is to caution the present generation of bankers. Keep the boss informed of such things without wasting time. The funny incident happened at one of the dinners at Jeta Dariani's house. I had mentioned about Jeta in my Nigerian experiences. I was a permanent invitee whenever Nigerian High Commission was an invitee. In one of those dinners at his Prithviraj Road bungalow, which was also used for filming the Hindi movie Silsila, Mr. Navin Chawla, who was a bureaucrat at that time, was present. He later became the Chief Election Commissioner. Jeta introduced me to him by name. He immediately responded, who was not heard about him. Everyone knows about the reforms he had introduced. I was stunned. I know he had mistaken me for someone else. When he had praised me in the presence of everybody, it was difficult for me to tell him that I was not the person he thought. Then it dawned on me. He just heard the name Ramakrishnan and thought that I was G.V. Ramakrishnan, the first chairman of SEBI. I called up Jeta the next day and told him to inform Mr. Chawla about the Fox Pass. Strictly not official, personal glory. I do not know how many of you have heard about Freemasonry. It is an international organization like Rotary Club or Lions Club, but it was founded centuries back and is the oldest international brotherhood. It was in existence from King Solomon's days. Common people call it a secret society since there are many secret rituals and symbols which are not made public. The main object was promotion of brotherhood and help the cause of charity. In the process, you also develop public speaking qualities. I was initiated into Freemasonry in 1972 at Chennai. The base unit was called a lodge. Members were known as brothers. There are many ranks in Freemasonry. I was one of the very active Masons. I progressed through various stages and was to become the master of the lodge in 1980. But I was transferred to Nairobi in 1979. I lost that great opportunity. When I came to Delhi, I became a joining member of the Lodge of Chartered Accountants. We used to meet every month. I was regular and active. I was made the master of that lodge within 3 years. The installation as worshipful master was a grand function followed by a banquet. The worshipful master of lodge accountants, Chennai for the year 1972, who initiated me into a Freemasonry came all the way to Delhi to attend my elevation as a master. It was an unforgettable evening. Those who want to know more about Freemasonry can Google for Freemasonry or read the book of Dan Brown, The Lost Key. Lessons I learned. It is not enough if you nurture a customer from the beginning. When he is at the take-off stage, other banks, especially private banks, would be just waiting in the wings to take him away. We should never give the impression that we have lost our confidence on him. Whenever you have an unpleasant experience with a person who knows your boss, you should be the first one to report the matter to the boss. Otherwise, you will end up in weakly defending your position. As they say, offense is the best form of defense. Situational advantage. Never discuss a borrower's needs at your orange house. Discuss only at your office. LPs. A murder case was being heard before a judge. The judge was a Freemason. During the course of the trial, it came to the notice of the judge that the accused was a Freemason. The judge acquitted him. This story is given as an example of brotherhood amongst Masons. But the real reason was the judge knew that Freemason would never commit a murder. It was rumored that Indira Gandhi wanted to ban Freemasonry during emergency. Many senior Masons called on her and told her that her father was a Freemason. Himalayan holidays. I made it a practice to take 15 days privilege leave every year and encash 15 days leave to meet the expenses. In the first holiday, I told my daughter, who was studying at IIT Chennai, that we could go to Haridwar and Rishikesh during summer vacation. I also added that they were the stopping points to go to Badrinath and Kedarnath. My daughter immediately asked me, why not we go to Badrinath and Kedarnath? I tried to dissuade her unsuccessfully, so we did it. I am reminding myself that this is not a travelogue, but a few interesting things I want to mention. One of our very good customers told me that he can arrange for accommodation at Rishikesh to stay in the ashram of a Swamiji who was known to him very well. I accepted the offer. I was excited. I had heard so much about Rishikesh, which was the abode for many Swamijis and saints. I thought the ashrams would be like those described in our mythological book, consisting of huts, cottages. You can imagine my disappointment when I saw the ashram of this Swamiji, which was like a hotel with more than 100 rooms, all well furnished. A canteen was also there for meals and snacks. We stayed overnight. The only beauty was the Ganges flowing behind the ashram. There was no bill, but there was a big board that donations were accepted. So we also donated some to cover our stay. Another thing I cannot forget was the beautiful scenarios on the way to Kedarnath. We crossed hundreds of waterfalls. I realized that if you wanted to see the beauty of India, you should visit Himalayas. We decided to stay for 2 nights at Kedarnath, so we hired a porter to carry our suitcase. Rest we left in a hotel in Gaurikund. We did not hire a pony and wanted to do trekking. Unfortunately, it had rained the previous night, so the road was muddy. We started at 7 a.m. and reached Kedarnath by 7 p.m. We enjoyed the hot roti and sabji at Birla's guest house, where I had booked the room. An unforgettable trekking. During my stay in Delhi, I visited Gangotri and Gomukh. Gangotri to Gomukh is another 18 km trekking. I had booked a room at the UP guest house, which was midway between Gangotri and Gomukh. The idea was to get a break in between. Here I learned a valuable lesson. We spent the night at the guest house. Next morning, I saw an elderly person having an unbearable stomach pain. There was no medical facility available near the guest house. If you want to see a doctor, you have to go to Gangotri by walk. Even ponies were difficult to get. Anyway, I survived. But on that day, I decided that I would go to exotic places. In future, only motor transport was available. We also visited Kulu Manali twice. We stayed at the guest house of Bank of India. We also visited Dharmsala, Nainital, Missouri, etc. We also visited Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary, Agra. My purpose of writing about the places we visited is to encourage those posted to Delhi to visit as many places as possible. Do not postpone your trips. Winter of Delhi. The winter during my first year was difficult to bear, but from the second year onwards, I started enjoying the winter. Invariably, many of my weddings were held during the winter. I found the Delhi weddings more lavish than these held in Mumbai. I was amazed to see at one wedding 8 or 9 paratha stalls. Agra paratha, Chandni chowk paratha, etc. All types of cuisines were available. A big sweet stall was set up for us to choose the desserts. In one of the weddings, I tasted an impossible item, hot ice cream. A scoop of ice cream was dipped in the maida dough and immediately fried in oil and was served like aloo bunda. The moment you put the stuff in your mouth, it would become cold. Once we were negotiating a deal with Mr. Siva Sankaran of Sterling Computers fame. He made a statement in English with a Tamil accent. Sir, you are asking for hot ice cream. There is no such thing as a hot ice cream. I thought if I met him again, I would tell him that hot ice creams are available. In all the It almost all the dinners held at five-star hotels during winter, the dessert used to be carrot halwa, gulab jamun with vanilla ice cream. That again brings to my mind an incident. Once at a dinner, one of our senior officers had a couple of more cakes than what he should have had. He started telling me certain things about one of our former general managers, which are not in good taste. Next day, I called him and advised him that he should know his limits and should not consume more than that. Whatever may be the temptation, I narrated to him what he had told me. He thanked me profusely, but he was waiting for an opportunity. When I was helping myself with a lively scoop of ice cream at a dinner, he came to me and told me, Sir, you should be careful. You are eating a lot of ice cream. I smiled and thanked him for his advice. Another winter attraction was farmhouse lunches on Sundays. With sun out, you stand in a beautiful lawn and enjoy the drinks. Even a teetotaler like me used to enjoy the Coke or Pepsi. You can imagine the pleasure derived by many who used to consume beer. In winter, it was difficult for me to get up early and go for morning walk. I normally used to leave the office by 5:30 p.m. In winter, I used to go straight to Lodi Gardens and take a walk till about 6:30 p.m. when the temperature would suddenly drop. Then I used to go to the Indian International Center for a cup of coffee, sometimes with a grilled sandwich. With that, I used to feel on top of the world and proceed home. Small pleasures. A few observations. In South, whenever a boy has to appear for 10th or 12th, the working mother would apply for leaves to take care of her son. In the North, it was the father who would apply for leave. Their excuse was the boy would never listen to the mother. When I was in Mumbai, any officer from Northern Zone coming to Mumbai for training or interview would call on me and seek my blessing. Before every promotion, he or she would phone me and seek my blessings. People from South would rarely do such things. Once I was interviewing officers for Skill 4 in Mumbai. One of the candidates was an officer from Chennai whom I knew very well. When I was in Chennai, he used to call me as VHR sir. I was surprised to see him in Mumbai and asked him when he was posted to Mumbai, and he replied that it was more than a year. I asked him why he did not come to say hello to me. He said he did not want to disturb me. I used to quote this in South, urging them that in these days it is not enough if you have merit. You should also keep in touch with people who are in the high position in the bank. You need not pester them, but they should know that you are there, out of sight, out of mind. While in Mumbai, I once attended a lecture by the late Swami Dayanand Saraswati to the staff of the stock exchange branch. It was organized by Mr. Mavani, AGM of the branch. Swamiji told us a story. One bank officer came to him and told him, Swamiji, I applied for promotion. I have not been promoted. But another officer with same qualifications, experiences, and seniority has been promoted. Why this injustice? Then the Swamiji told him that there should be some plus points for the person promoted which he did not have. The officer said no, there is absolutely no plus point for him except that he was a godfather. He has a godfather. Then the Swamiji exclaimed that told him, see, he has a plus point compared to you. You also go and get a godfather. Today it is a competitive world. Survival of the fittest is the mantra. So it is essential that you at least keep in touch with people known to you you are in high position. Unforgettable farewell. In the second quarter of 1996, I got the transfer orders to head office as General Manager International. Mr. M. Venugopalan was asked to take charge from me. I was at dinner at Indian International Center and invited all the important customers to say bye to them and to formally introduce them to my successor. It was well attended. The staff of Delhi also organized a farewell party for me at the overseas branch. The big hall was jam-packed and many had to stand. I fulfilled my promise of talking in Hindi for the major part. I can never forget the encomiums paid to me by various speakers. It was an unforgettable farewell. Conclusion. Overall, I would say I enjoyed my posting in Delhi. I served for nearly 4.5 years. Nobody has broken that record. In these days of first promotion, my record of longest tenure would remain unbroken for a long time. I might have omitted the names of many staff members. This is partly due to the lapse of almost 20 years since I left Delhi. However, I must mention the name of Harvinder Singh of the Officers Association. I found him as a very reasonable, quiet officer. I met him a couple of years before in Mumbai. He was director of the bank. I am glad to know that he is now working as the General Secretary of IBOC. I also remember the two Sarmas of AIBA. Even though it may be a repetition, I should say that I was lucky to have an excellent team of staff in Delhi. The association and the two staff unions were always good towards me and never created any problem for me. In a nutshell, I had a good job satisfaction in my assignment in Delhi. The chapter Delhi Chalo, my experiences as a general manager is completed, and the next chapter will be time management. Thank you very much for your patience. Request for like, subscribe, and share.